So tonight we're going to go into how to estimate renovations, analyze costs, minimize mistakes. Just so you all know, we have a great seminar once a month usually. Every now and then we have an off month where, maybe it's the middle of summer, nobody's available, so we skip a month. But for the most part, we probably do this almost every month. And we rotate the topic. There's a few I like to do multiple times a year, which is number one, the Burr method. That's something I use to invest, and I think it's the most effective way of scaling a portfolio quickly. But so I do that a couple times a year. Burr, it's just an acronym, stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance. And that's how I buy rental properties. And that's not something that's new. It's something that's been going on forever. Just before online forums like Bigger Pockets and YouTube and, podcasts, no one talked about it. It was kind of like a secret niche that investors would sell at these seminars if you were able to find one. But now everyone's talking about it, and it's a really, really good way to scale a portfolio. So we'll touch a little bit on some of that during this, but there's usually two of these each year that really focuses on the Burr. I use some pretty specific examples of properties that I've used and done that process with, and to show how it can work, how it could be really good, how it could be really bad, depending on, how you do it. All right. It's buy, renovate, rent, refinance. Mm-hmm. And some people add an extra R in there and say repeat, but it's a way of rinsing your money, right? So I'll give you a quick example. In 2018, I bought a row home in Southwest Philadelphia with my sister. Got it for super cheap. It was like $35,000. It needed about $30,000 in work, and I had about $5,000 in like holding costs, things like that. So it was about $70,000 all in. So I bought it, renovated, found a tenant for it. At the time, I was getting like $1,100 a month. And then I went to a local credit union. I went to Philadelphia Federal Credit Union, asked them to come out and appraise the property, which I knew it was going to appraise for 100. It appraised for 100. I asked them to give me a 75% loan on that, which was 75 grand. So I got all of my money back. I have a loan on it, but I have a tenant that's paying that loan, right? And I was able to start over again. So you can do that in small scales like that. You can do that. I've done that with a 10-unit building in Pottstown where we bought it for $540. Financed the 75% of the purchase price, got a second lender for the 25% down payment and my holding costs, and renovation costs. Renovated it over a year and a half. So it slowly turned all the tenants over, raised the rents. And then when we were done, refinanced it, appraised for $940, and we were $670 into it or something, and was able to get all the money back, pay back the first lender, pay back the second, actually made a little bit of money and still cash flow, right? It's a fun process if it works, right? So you kind of have to start in the back and the end and work your way back. Make sure you know what your ARV after repair value is, which can be tricky when you get to multifamily, because you're not looking at comps anymore. You're looking at cap rates, price per unit based on the market you're in, which gets a little bit more involved. You're looking at that, you're figuring out, hey, after it's fully renovated and rented out, do my rents support the mortgage I'm going to get when I'm done? Like, am I doing all of this to make no money, which is pointless, right? There are people that invest for equity and they say, well, I don't care if it doesn't make a whole lot of money, but we're all investing for money, right? So it needs to make some money, and for me, that number is usually, I know it sounds small, but to be honest with you, it's realistic. I look for $100 per month per door after everything is paid. So what I want to make. So if it's two of us, I want to make $200. If it's four of us, $400, pure profit. So after all my fixed expenses like taxes, insurance, lawn care, snow, and utilities I'm paying, sewer line coverage, like literally everything you can think of in, internet for your security system, your rental licenses, all of those things are paid and your variable expenses are paid. So I put away 10% for a property manager, 5% for expenses, 5% for vacancies, and my mortgage is paid. That's what I want to walk away with. Now people are like, well, that's not a whole lot. Yeah, that's how real estate investing works. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's, you do have to build up a portfolio before you're really, now you could get lucky, and there are like Airbnbs that do really well off the bat, which is different. But if you're looking for the stacking units method, that's a realistic, number to look at. Any questions about that before I keep going?
Yeah, everyone else might be a little bit more advanced.
Sure.
This is our first,
All good. That's what this is for. Yeah.
No.
No. Yeah. That's what this is for. I've had people come with no experience. I've had people come with hundreds of units. It's, yeah. Yeah. So feel free to ask as many questions as you want. We got the room till at least 8 o'clock. So. All right. So just to go over what Grid is. Grid is a global real estate community built for investors by investors. There are thousands of Grid communities. I run Grid DELCO, but there's Grid Springfield, Grid Philadelphia, Grid, Montgomery, like Alabama. There's grids all over the place. There's grids in all countries. Once you start coming to these, you can go on their Facebook pages. You can join all of their chats, and there's investors in there sharing deals. There's lenders talking about lending. It's here for investors to talk to each other. So use the community. It's free. It's just for like-minded investors to kind of talk and network, find deals, help each other, things like that. We're not gurus. We're just a group of people doing real estate deals, right? So not here to sell you anything. This is free, right? So our mission to connect, learn from, and collaborate with like-minded people interested in building wealth and creating impact through real estate. The goal is to achieve income flip by building and buying assets that generate enough passive income to cover our expenses, right? That's the dream for most real estate investors. It's how do I get to the point that my rental portfolio is covering my expenses, right? You can become a flipper and be a flipper as an investor, but I always like to remind people being a flipper is just another job, right? It is not passive. It's a job. And if you don't have deals, you don't make money, right? And recent example was COVID happened, and I knew flippers around here that were flipping, a lot of homes every year, and then they couldn't find deals because everyone was buying homes, right? Right. And pre-COVID, rarely would I be in a situation as an investor where I'm bidding against a regular homeowner. During COVID and post-COVID, 9 times out of 10, I'm bidding against regular homeowners. And that made it really hard to get deals. Even if you were someone buying deals at the sheriff's sale, people were getting very desperate to find homes just to live in, rightfully so. And you were no longer finding good deals. It was harder to find deals. So if you're a flipper, that income can dry up very quickly. And if you're not using that flip income to invest in more passive assets like rentals or Airbnbs or things like that, again, it's just another job.
Yeah. Question.
Sure.
So do you see it getting better now than when it was during COVID? Like
Mhm.
the housing market is kind of switching, but the amount of houses are, I think the inventory, because most of the inventory was during COVID.
Sure.
And then everybody bought up houses.
Yeah.
So are you seeing any change in that?
No.
Yeah.
So I'll, yeah.
And this is like, yeah,
Yeah.
So, I'm a real estate agent, I still have my property casualty license and self-insurance as well. And it's in Philly, the realtors that I know and work with, you price in a reduction that you're gonna, after maybe 2 weeks of putting it on the market, you're gonna see a 5 or 10% drop. And that kind of resets they spin everyone's algorithm, and they're like, oh, wow, they really want to sell this house. They're gonna list at that price anyway.
right,
That might still not even be the market, because they're still inflated from the high water mark with COVID.
right,
And where that property value reached everything, but in Philadelphia County is still not as desirable as DELCO, Montgomery County, even people moving across the border into Wilmington. People get out of Philly in certain pockets in different areas, and there's value there for the inventory that's being built up. But I speak of our RE/MAX team that I sell to, put a $1.5 million property in Phoenixville, and it sold in 3 weeks.
yeah,
And it's like, well, how many buyers are, you think of the amount of buyers that actually could be out there looking for $1.5 million home? Like how many taxes are out there actually buying these things, but it's still, if it's priced, and you look at the comps, so it's priced at the market where it should be, and it sells.
And it
So
sells.
it's, people can still get aggressive with pricing, and that kind of shows that the market dictates the price.
and I think, so my house is in Vermont, and what I'm seeing now is low inventory. And, you know, people are now, and the houses are, the value is really low. As far as what I'm able to, that I wouldn't have thought, you know, just in 4 years,
Yeah.
that price went, you know, I don't know.
You would think the interest rates and
Yeah.
stagnation that's kind of happening.
But they went higher, yeah.
Either trending low or saying what we're seeing, almost like a 5% month over month increase of this summer and people want to live.
Yeah.
So unless you find a really good deal today, it's not a good deal.
Well,
So it
There's-
depends on,
right.
it depends,
Right.
right?
It's, again, it's all about the numbers, and you don't, and I would say, totally agree with him, is I'm in real estate, I run a real estate team, like houses are selling like crazy in the suburbs. There's not enough inventory. That's the problem, right? There's a ton of people and, you know, the population keeps going up. And where else is there to build in Delaware County, Montgomery County, even the further regions of Chester County, you know, areas where I wouldn't sell houses 5 years ago, now they're building $1.5 million houses and they're being scooped up because we're kind of tapping out the area, right? It's something you mentioned before everyone got here where you started talking about you're looking further out, like Allentown. I did that 4 years ago and it started to get tapped out then too, right? Like they're expensive out there now too. We'll get into that a little bit more. But that shouldn't scare you. There's people doing deals and they're finding deals. They're just getting creative, right? Yes, if a house is listed with a realtor on the multiple listing service, everyone sees it, right? And you're now fighting against regular home buyers. That's a losing battle if you're an investor. It makes no sense to pay what a regular home buyer would pay because they don't need meat on the bone. You as an investor does. So generally, if a property hits the market, now it doesn't mean you won't find good deals. I have investors that I work with regularly that we find deals on the MLS. We do. They just know the market they're buying in. So like I have guys that'll only buy in Sharon Hill or only buy in Upper Darby because they know how much they can pay, exactly what number to put on it, exactly what to do to get the right value out of it, and they'll make it happen. You know, and I have relationships with a lot of those agents, so we generally, you know, we generally are able to make it work, right? Doesn't mean you can't find deals on the MLS. You have to be very specific, all right? Let's talk about a couple other ways to find deals since we're kind of on that path. You know? Multiple listing service. And so that's what realtors use. Mhm. So there's levels. Yeah. Yeah, there's like, yeah.
The sheriff's house, they turn the tap off. Really, think they're gonna raise to be that, that's where you can find a property that somebody is going to have to auction the city home because of the tax burden, and they doesn't give the city any way to sit on assets that they need cash flow, so they sell the shares, come in with a couple of them pretty wide. And then people will bid on properties, and it's strange every once in a while when it doesn't get bid on. And then somebody will see their opportunity and they'll get it for like 7, 8. Like what about this woman that was like waiting for a whole day to buy her house and I'm gonna say everybody, oh, very cute, but like most of the time, it's people that realize you'll get a listing and you'll get the paperwork like a couple days before. People come in with their roll up and they'll drive by their properties. Because they want a house part of it actually. Kind of like see a window, get a little entrance. Yeah, they're totally.
But you don't know when you get checked, right?
Well, you should know your diligence on what you look at. You look at everything on the back and it's part of neighbors rules, square footage, everything that, what is listed on the property.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean it's accurate, that doesn't mean you open up the door and get and buy that for 10,000, 20,000, whatever it is. You open that door, it's a storage unit that you don't know what's on the front. So it's, you have to go in, eyes wide open and go through every, training, but you also haven't seen usually that you're gonna send your guys, or at least like, I think, what to do to.
I mean, you don't have to buy it.
You have to put, it's usually when I was there, it was 20% now, and cash on the spot.
Okay.
Where cashier's check, so everyone's having cashier's check, something like that. And then 45 days or principal payment, maybe it's 30, it's continued on what their timeline was for that full payment side.
Yeah.
You basically get the property that you're able to go over there and take a look at it, but you gotta pay the city within plus all 30 days to make sure that they're whole. But if you don't, then it goes back to auction.
They keep that
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a little like the city is,
20%.
well,
Get it back.
That should.
Yeah.
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 You gotta be hot committed over that point. Because you're gonna put 20 grand on a $50,000, $60,000 bid, probably, you think you're gonna win it. It's a lot of due diligence beforehand to know, sure, so. It's much easier, so I know there's my work with that works for rebuilt, and they are a company that gets like 8 to 10 weeks a week. And it's online portals for somebody who wants to sell their house, but they know their house is like a hoarder house. And they don't want to put the energy and effort into like, we want to be as and put it on water, so their kids are gonna basically either take the next walk away, step with them, or move them into a new property, like an apartment, assisted living, whatever it's gonna be. But they just want, like, the white people out there, they just want to hatch for their property, let that actually be $100. So he has a cost estimator, and he just puts it into the system, and all the deals that they're not gonna get on for rebuild. We did, says, hey, if you wanna take a look, that's.
no,
Go ahead and run it down, but we've already looked at our cost estimator, it's not in the right neighborhood, they basically have almost like, corporations that they sell with. It's not, I mean, I wish the corporations didn't exist, I wish there was a cap on the properties in Blackstone or something to own, to make sure that all of us actually get a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
But they start these companies like Rebuilt to then create a web service that filters their leads. And then they have agents that they pay like 25 grand a year to run around places to try to get people to sign.
Yeah.
They have lowball offers.
Yeah.
But when that doesn't work, they still have to speak to them. I think after the week, maybe next week, and a handful of things.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so the opportunities are out there, that's kind of, I think everyone's mindset should be slightly different, but looking for the hidden gems that. If you stay in lane and pick something you really want to do, like for a while, I was Airbnbs.
Yeah.
They work really well, especially in the city of Philadelphia. But then they changed their policy. And I will apply for what's called an LLL, I look at lodging islands, I look at $5,000 a year, which coming to my.
What you were getting out, yeah.
Yep, and we had 2 bad scenarios, one time somebody brought a tenant, and threatened to get a tenant, and it just, it wasn't working, we had your money
And the headache.
Yeah, they can't afford it, you find the perfect opportunity, and then they should be, like, I would say right extra month. Because we know the cap is on a single family or row home or something here, like chair bill, or they make. 1100 on the low end, so maybe like 22 to 400 on a single family with a high end or 300 so, but you know you're at that, when you can find whatever you do, it's going to be like rebranding for a weekend, because somebody's going to pay a 6-bedroom house.
Yeah.
That's in a area that's spring golf course, or something like that.
Yeah.
We might work out there to do short-term rentals.
I'm just gonna friend of mine from the US Open.
What's that?
I joined the US Open.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
There wasn't.
Yeah.
a place to do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. I know a few guys that do Airbnb down there to like the flight attendants, you know.
So that's what we're-
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can find
Yeah.
out, yes. But we'll talk,
Yeah.
we'll let you know.
Sure, okay. No, no, that was good info for sure. No, keep asking, believe me, we'll get through everything even with questions. All right, so it's really important, especially for yourselves, like starting off investors, understanding you are building a business, right? If you're gonna run an investment business, like I invest, it's my side hustle, you know, but it's a business. I have a system to that business. You know, it means 11 p.m. at night, which is the only time I have, because that's when my kids are asleep and that's when the phone stops ringing, is when I could look at properties, all right? And where I'm looking for properties and the types of properties I'm looking for, it takes some due diligence. And so, you know, I've added a layer of one of my partners, who's one of my business partners. I have him evaluate it to see if it gets to my level before I spend the time at 11 p.m. at night to look at it, right? And I have, you know, like I said, I'm an agent, but I work with agents all over the state of Pennsylvania to find me deals. So if they find me a deal that makes sense, you know, so I have people out there working for me, and I'll use them as my agent happily because they got me a good deal. And so you have to have a system. Similarly, you mentioned like a good way to find deals. He kind of touched on this, but there's things like wholesalers, right? There's little wholesalers that, are you familiar with wholesaling or what that is? So wholesaling, if you ever see those signs like we'll buy houses cash, or you get those flyers, most of them aren't actually going to buy your house cash, right? They're sending you a letter to get you to bite, to say, hey, come over, take a look at my house. You go over, you take a look at the house, and they say, okay, we know it's worth this. We know we can sell it to someone for this. We're going to pay you this. We're going to tell you this is what your house is worth. We're going to sign a contract with you. And then we're going to market that contract to our people, our investors. We're actually going to hand the contract over to them before we close. They're actually the one buying the house. We aren't, right? And they're taking an assignment fee in the middle. Wholesalers find you better deals because they're off-market deals. Seller doesn't actually know what their house is worth. If they do, they probably would have listed it on the market. Or they're serving a purpose, right? Like maybe the seller just didn't want to deal with all the crap. Like they didn't want to clean the house out. They didn't want to deal with inspections. They didn't want to deal with a bunch of showings. They thought the house was too dangerous and it was a risk to show. There are legitimate reasons that the seller could just want to sell it off market, right? And so if you Google wholesalers, or you go on Instagram or Facebook and you look at, you can find a ton of groups locally. I'm on most of them. And I'm always, I highlight when they post. I get notified when they're posts, because I want to see what they're posting. Because those deals are generally going to be better than what's on the MLS, right? So yeah, it's actually down. Actually, there's one right here. Yeah, there's one right here to the left. Yeah.
So you don't have that real estate license to do. You were, I didn't leave your house, I'm gonna low, you know, it's like 200 today because convictions are going to be worth. But I don't want you 100 because I know I can sell for 150. I know that once someone puts 10 or 20,000 work into it, then it can be evaluated at 200, which is not a fair market price of the car. If I'm going to buy it, you know, basically we're writing a sales contract, then I'm going to take a shot. And I'm going to make a commission on the market. So I paid 100, I pay that I have your all my signature on the contract, and I have a shot to get it. So this is 100, you're going to pay me 150. So I'm gonna make 50,000, but I only make it for. And then it's just literally checks on the handle, and you're getting 50,000, but it has nothing to do with you buying and selling real estate, it was a paper transaction where I go and live. All that, that's all, like, you're gonna pay for that, burden of it, but I negotiated that. So you don't actually have to have a real estate license to do that, there's a lot of other companies just have flyers. Yeah.
But being a builder, like you were saying, you get a lot of, you work with a lot of. And they can bring you, so that's a community of builders.
So I do have a kind of a, maybe a taboo take on this, but I'm a real estate agent. I run a real estate team. I ask my real estate agents not to wholesale. I don't personally wholesale because the real estate right says it's my fiduciary right to get the most value for my clients, right? Me wholesaling isn't me doing that. Now, if I have a client, correct. So I don't mind buying houses from wholesalers because again, I wasn't involved in the upfront negotiation. And if a client comes to me, and I have had it happen where they're like, we absolutely don't want this to go on the market, I will have them write it on the agreement that you understand, hey, I could probably get you this. I showed you the comps, but you're willing to settle for this. Let's both initial this because I don't want to risk my license, right? Because that's my real job, right? So I don't want to risk that. So I don't think realtors should be doing it, but again, that's not, I don't make the rules. I just kind of, do what I do. But wholesalers serve a purpose and you can find really good deals from them. And making them a part of your business is important as an investor, right? If you have some really good wholesalers, or maybe just one that's just getting started and they're actually finding good deals and they actually know what they're doing, they're running title on these deals and they're not wasting everyone's time, you could have a gold mine right there. You could have a guy or girl that's hustling, making the calls, finding you deals, running title, making sure they make sense and presenting you with good deals. And if you're doing them right by not beating them up on their price, by, then you have a lead flow. So that's kind of like finding someone to be your levels 1 and 2. That's finding someone to be the sales and marketing, because that's what the wholesaler is doing. They're doing marketing and they're doing sales, right? If you don't want to do that stuff, find people to do it for you, right? Find wholesalers, find realtors, find people that'll go to share sale, like find people to do that level of stuff for you, because you're a business owner and that's part of being a business owner is delegating, right? So understanding that is important. You're not just gonna get a realtor and say, hey, send me what's on the MLS, and it's gonna take you years to find a good deal in this market, in our area. And to kind of speak to your first question about what my thoughts are on the market is, everyone, kind of looks at the real estate market as this whole thing when it's not. It's regional, right? Our region is different than 2 hours from here. Our region is different than Florida or Texas. There are markets that are already hurting. Like I know agents in Florida and in Texas that they have houses sitting on the market for 70, 80 days, right? Even Philadelphia. There's pockets of Philadelphia, the average days on market is 70 days right now. Whereas there are pockets that the average days are 3. So it's Philadelphia's a neighborhood, but it's very regional. And in our area, there's not enough inventory for it to slow down. So, all right. So to get to this real quick, who am I? Yes, to qualify to be a grid leader, you do have to have some qualifications. I'm Will Holder. I run the William Holder Realty Team and a part owner of Remax Classic in Wayne. I run this group because I'm a real estate investor. I'm looking for deals, partnerships. Every property I own, I have a partnership with. I don't own anything by myself. Even my house, my wife owns that with me, so I don't own anything by myself, nothing's mine. And that's okay, as far as she knows, right? I don't partner with a lot of people, but I partner with people that I've met, that I've forged relationships with, and that's how I've been able to scale my portfolio. I have what do I want to accomplish with you guys? Obviously, it's help you grow, help you learn, help you understand investing in real estate. To me, strong, really good investors help a market in general, right? You have a bunch of crappy landlords just bringing down rents, dragging down property values. Not good for anyone. not good for homeowners in the area. It's not good for other landlords. It's not good for the township. Nobody wants that. So I do think there's a right way to do things, and then there's a way that a lot of people do it, which doesn't help anybody. And I think we could do that together. And you can connect with me through Meetup, Instagram, Facebook. You know, I'll give you my information at the end. Feel free. About myself, I'm currently a real estate investor. I have about 70 units throughout the state of Pennsylvania. I do flips. I do about 2 or 3 flips a year. Again, I don't love them. They're kind of a necessary evil, I call them. You know, they're just to fund buying rentals for me. And I'm interested in BRRRRs. I love BRRRRs. It's pretty much what I've done. I don't think I've ever bought anything turnkey. Even my house, I fixed that up. Like, I just don't have any interest in ever buying anything turnkey. I don't know why. Anyone that has any ability to do a renovation project would ever buy anything turnkey. There's, you know, there's so much money to be made and value to be earned with a little bit of work. I'm no longer, I used to buy row homes, duplexes, you know, single families. In the right market, I will, but for the most part, I'm mostly interested in multifamily now. We are pretty much targeting Western Pennsylvania. I've kind of worked my way out there at this point, and that's the majority of what I'm looking to buy and have bought in the last year. Because of the prices. I mean, I bought like a 10 unit for $375 in Pittsburgh, you know, so it's like, okay, I'm not gonna get that here, you know, so.
You buy it, so you have the same contractor do all the work?
No, so, right, yeah, if it's within a half, with just a lot of phone calls. Yeah, usually I start with property managers. So when I moved out there, so that wasn't like when I first was buying here, Philadelphia, Delaware County, then I moved out to Montgomery County, then I pushed out to Carbon County because I looked at like Allentown, Bethlehem, and it was getting a little too pricey. So I pushed even further out. So Carbon County is like Jim Thorpe, Tamaqua. It's about 20-30 minutes west of like that whole region, Lehigh Valley region. And I called a bunch of property managers, found one I liked. They recommended a bunch of contractors. Property managers, realtors, whoever, don't like to give out names of people that are going to burn them. You know, it does happen, but you know, they give you bad referral, it looks bad on them, right? So good place to start is to ask who their people are, you know, kind of crowdsourcing your information. And then same, once I pushed out Pittsburgh, was the same process. Just find a good property manager with a ton of good reviews and then dig into what they have to offer. Hoping to learn is if anyone ever has any deals. You know, I do a couple flips a year locally. I don't do any flips outside of the area because I manage my own flips. So I like to be within a 30-minute radius of them. But if you know anyone has any deals, it's a way to make money too. You know, you could do a wholesale without being a wholesaler. You know, you have a family member that wants to sell a house. You have a buyer that could buy. Simple, right? All right, so let's go around the room real quick. Start over there. And
I'm not really safe after yet, but that's like that. Start about a month ago, it's doing a bunch of research. It's my third meetup. Doesn't care about that. I feel like I was the same that we started out and we talked about it's gonna happen all I'm interested in doing first. Not really okay with calling it therapy and that goes very great thought. What happens when you consider it. So it's small multi-family, single family. I'm doing exactly right. I know I'll make mistakes.
awesome. Awesome. So you guys shared a little bit already, but feel free to share more. Yeah, no.
My name is Eileen and I'm not. And basically, this is all new to me and what properties makes me interested in, I really don't know yet, but I'm here to gain information. As many of these that I can, you know, paper or just to gain knowledge.
Sure.
What are you going to learn? What are you going to learn? every type of different property, living houses,
Mhm.
sheriff sales, you know, like, rentals, yes, second, subscription, furniture. So how do you like to benefit from the group? Just education and networking.
There you go. Awesome.
I'm well, and I'm an investor, I believe, it's the first time that we're anything with this.
Mhm.
And she can talk about investing in different houses. Yeah, I guess right now we're interested in starting out small, starting doing the votes, you know, we don't know what to do, it's not right. Like we learn, as much as we can, and that's where. Whatever we need to do, to make something right. Well, we've already done it for you.
Oh, yeah, yeah, everyone.
Yeah, awesome.
Possible, yeah.
Awesome.
22 is the very corner.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you, I mean, thank you, yeah. And I didn't mean to like, interrupt.
No, it's good.
Yeah, I'm also, my friend investor, yes. Even if it's not a unit over time, is multiple units where you're living in one. Basically, will stay at least 2 years there, so that you sell the property, the portion of your rental, you can get that gains. Which is, it's very quite well over time. Properties that are interested in, families as well as. I mean, all the families, but they're very unique, like generational living, or it's like in-law suite or something else, where it's not traditional, but even that. On a scale that's higher, because people see like, oh, look at my mom, they have my in-laws actually lived in our house, and came that we bought, and we kind of opened my eyes. We had to chase that property, which is became this step up of value when people kind of see like, oh, why does it actually pictures, and why does it space like this? And it just brings it actually double what people have, one price, and so, yeah. What I hope to learn is, so I spent the last year and a half, mostly with Billy. I took 7 trips over there, my wife and I are buying a property in Tuscany. And that's taken up a ton of our time, so my wife and my in-laws are immigrant, I moved in 1987. So I'm not under the evaluation, so well, it's a Schengen zone of the EU. Because I have citizenship and family unification act, and after the most of Europe, I don't have to stay there under permanent citizenship for as long as we have. We also get a few tax benefits for buying in Italy as a Polish citizen. It's like it's all of us live in Texas. We're allowed to do it. You can go live there, you can buy a property, so the Polish citizens are allowed to just, move to Italy, buy something in Italy. There's a 9% transfer tax, which hits everybody over the head, or my wife's citizenship, that hits at least at 2% for us. And my goal with that is to make up to $120,000 per person, because you get taxed by the US government, so you can make money abroad and not have any government hands in your income you're making, up to what now it's $127K per person. So I want to have personally 5 and 6 rentals that are somewhere between 20 and 25,000 each. Then when I'm 61, 41 now, so 20 years from now, my wife and I can go entirely, leave the kids. So it's a different scenario for a lot of people that be able to go to another country and retire. I haven't been because of my wife citizenship, so I have a little catbird seat, and after I didn't learn all year, I just realized that being changes a lot in the US. Where Italy's a little bit more traditional, and they're also happy for tourism to be brought in. And I have a property investor that I'm following in Italy, like I'm not flying blind, but I'm kind of following the steps of somebody over there. And now we're under contract for our first one, it was 5 or 6 months, we're planning on closing sometime in September, October. We're buying something there in the, and I was trying to buy this whole part of business. We want to keep it for the summertime, so we're really also financing costs in Italy, 30% down. a 3.09% 30-year fixed rate. Which blows everything out of the water here. All the interest rates are set by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, it's not Jerome Powell sitting in his ivory tower, looking at, oh, rates are too high, so I'm gonna raise interest rates. It makes no data sense. But over there, they keep things cheap. It's just your down payment has to be, or your print or your investor, usually they have 50% of that from the lender. But your overall principal and interest on our loan, which is roughly derived from 160, we're financing about 110, and that 110 P&I is it's like $50, $502 a month. And it's just gives the option to go over the red date for that. We're looking at so the low end in the slow season, which is right up in Easter and end of October. Really the end of September, but it spills into October because of the travel schedules and stuff. So then from October to let's call it the beginning of March, we'll be at about $100 a night, and in the summertime, close to double that. We'll average 175. It'll be a sliding scale. And you have these property managers that are really dialed into the pricing, so things kind of heat up. You have weekends that are booked, you kind of just stay step with all the rest of the prices that it allows. Property management fee over there is 20% off the top, you use 21% to the town of taxes. It's been a little bit of a little swallow, they're only going to be 59 or 60% of what I get from the rental side. When we look at the finance costs and what I had personally, if my wife and citizenship began to go over there, it was the right move for me to sell the Airbnb that I had, you know, finance this, because I just didn't want to live in the city of Philadelphia from that standpoint. So, public learn, really like to expand my reach. I was very fully centric with any of the investment I did before. It's living in Kensington, and then we got to DELCO. And man, this stuff we had, it took a back seat because I got really annoyed with the city. That version of kind of the mission I went there, I thought that I was not oversaturated, but I just didn't see the reason to jump too much more than what I really was. Honestly, like all around this stuff. So I also work with reset insurance, and it's been very helpful with people, and be able to give you an idea of hey, we set the properties, we should talk, and we got to see $50 a month for all of them. Well, it's a tough change when you set
70 doors, not, but 70 doors, but yeah, 20 properties, yeah. But I don't want 70 properties, it's a lot of edits. And yes, insurance, I'd love to talk, because insurance is crazy these days, yeah, it's, insurance is wild. Awesome, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, my name is Casey. I actually work for the Florida Fed, not involved in and I guess I can say I have one rental person who actually lived in fish out of the city. The first time we go out there, we lived for 2 years, started to do on the way, and really upgraded in size. So we kept the original home, rented it out. I used to live down in London, Virginia, with the folks down there. I held on to my condo down there for about a year. Then they had property manager and ended up selling it, but definitely have selling the matter that I was just still wondering, find some letter, but you know, so I'm definitely interested in kind of expanding the portfolio. I think some of the time in the world is really going to learn how specifically enticed by this topic. You know, I don't know it all the time. A lot of turnkey properties, which I don't know about, cash flow, and try to project something with another firm. Just sort of do that and knowledge, with their boss.
Okay. Awesome. Said you live in Still live in the city?
I did, yeah, so.
Okay, all right, cool. Awesome. Where'd you grow up? Okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. That was great. So just a few quick things before we get into it. Don't hold anything I say against me. This is just free information. It's investor to investor. That's what this says. Don't sue me if you don't like what you heard. This is recorded on Zoom, so if it will be posted on like my YouTube page, if for some reason your voices are heard on there, I'm sorry. It's just, don't tell anyone your social security number. So just a couple quick picks just to go over some ideas in terms of what you should do. Now, understanding the type of investing you're trying to do is the most important, right? If you're planning on doing flips, high-end flips, you probably don't want to figure out your own design. You probably want to get a designer, an architect involved. That's a whole different story. If you're looking to do a moderate flip in a residential neighborhood, you could probably piece it together. And I tell a lot of my investor clients, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So if 3 houses that were flipped sold for this price and this is the price you want, look at their pictures and just do what they did, right? That's one of the easiest ways to do a flip. And I love doing it that way because I used to get cute and creative with the ones I did in the beginning, and I would always lose money because I'm spending too much time getting creative, right? If it's working, don't fall in love with the property. Don't try to have little niches and, accent walls and go crazy. What you like isn't going to necessarily give you a return on your investment. So yes, when you see flips, a property and they all look the same and they have gray walls and the same laminate flooring and, white shaker cabinets, it's for a reason. It's working and it's affordable. And that's what gives the investor a spread. So that's why you do it that way. Okay. If you're buying rentals to fix them up, you can pick a level of finishes, literally a scope of work. So I'm going to use these poles from Amazon. Here's the link, right? I'm going to use these types of cabinets. I'm going to use these types of floors. Here's a link. Here's a link. And you can hand it to your contractor and say, this is what I want in that apartment, right? And I already know this laminate is $1.50 a square foot. And this is a, 200 square foot room. I can figure out what my floor is going to cost me because my contractor told me, hey, I'll charge you $2 a square foot to install, right? These are conversations you have with your contractor. And we're going to go further into this, but I will say disclaimer, it's really hard to find a good contractor, right? That's going to be your number one issue as an investor, in my opinion. Especially if you're doing flips, there's this fine line in contractors where they're either really good and they know it, so they charge you for it. And listen, if it's your house, pay that guy, right? Like that's the person you want doing your house, right? Or they're really good and they don't know, and you might get a good job or two out of them, but they're going to figure it out and they're going to become too expensive. And all right, good for them. Or they aren't any good and they're going to blow your budget up and you're going to have to start over and lose a bunch of money. Or they're good, but they're going to fall apart because they don't understand how to be a project manager. They understand they could be a good contractor. And when you go from doing one job with them to two, all of a sudden they're spread and it gets overwhelming and it blows up, right? I've seen it go all the different ways personally. And no matter who, I won't recommend contractors to my regular residential clients ever. I tell them, go find someone on Google with plenty of reviews because I've been burned so many times. I don't want to ruin that relationship anymore. You cannot depend on a small niche contractor that has no reviews or, everyone in the neighborhood kind of knows them, like you gotta, if it's a client or it's your house, go with somebody reputable. When you're an investor, you're looking for that little diamond that might sink eventually, but for now it works, right? So understanding that's important. Whatever your contractor tells you, add to it, right? I usually add 15% to my contractor's bid. That's about the number I go with. It can be less, sure, but that's just what your contractor is gonna do. So I recommend if you have a contractor, even though they seem great and they tell you it's $100,000 bid, your budget is 115 immediately, right? Like just start there. And that's what you're gonna tell your bank as well, right? This comes in with the financing part. If you're doing a flip or even a BRRRR and you use a fix and flip loan where the bank's giving you 80% of the purchase price and 100% of the renovation costs, overinflate your renovation costs, right? Because you're going to need it, right? And I've never been in a situation where my contractor came in under budget. Just doesn't happen. They don't have, that's not, I'd rather be overestimating. But again, this is factors into how much you offer for the property. So you're building that estimation into your initial offer on the property, right? If my rent budget is 115 versus 100, I'm going to offer 15 less for that house than I would have if I based it on my contractor, right? And hey, if your contractor comes in or under budget, you made more profit. So, good business, right? So with this house, like you see, they painted the brick, they kept the siding, but they painted the shutters. These are just little things that people do to not spend like crazy. I have a client making an offer on a house out in Aston, and his buddy's with them. It's like, oh, we got to replace the siding. No, you don't. You paint those shutters, fix the broken pieces, but you don't touch that siding. You're gonna get no return on that, right? What you want to do is make the kitchen beautiful, and those are conversations you have with yourself. Another quick example, obviously, moldy bathroom, not great. One thing I do regularly for bathrooms, especially for rentals, and I do them for some flips too, versus you'll see it around here in Delaware County. They call it the DELCO tile. Not sure if you've seen it, but most of the bathrooms around here, they were done in the 50s. They have these giant thick tiles that are like pink and blue and green and white in every house in Delaware County. And if you try to rip them out, they're 1,000 pounds because they're overlapped and it's insanely heavy. I just reglaze them, right? I don't rip them out because it's a ton of time. My contractor spends a ton of money getting rid of that trash. So we just have a reglazer come in. They spray glazing over the entire bathroom. It looks like a nice new white tile bathroom. It cost me $1,200 versus just the demo on that bathroom would have been more than that, right? So again, if it's even in a low end flip, that works, right? And honestly, up to mid-tier, it might work too. Really don't need to always go rip out the bathroom. There are ways to get creative, when it comes to bathrooms, if you're doing a residential home, you always want a tub. It's like hints 101, don't get rid of the tub. Families, they want a tub, to give it. I'm a realtor. Yeah, I show houses. The first question I get from most is that I need a tub in one of the bathrooms. You're eliminating a ton of your buyers if you get rid of your tub. And I see so many contractors do it. I don't know why, it's necessary.
A lot of it's cost and look at stuff compared to just the job that they're gonna put with bathrooms,
Right.
like a nice thoughtful something standalone, thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But you a very nice piece of that, and it's a piece of, so it's like a really old person. I've never thought of leaving one, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yep. And again, you look at this, it looks really nice. Tell you most of those finishes aren't super expensive. You can get that vanity at Home Depot for $150, buy that light fixture for like $80. These aren't expensive finishes that they're putting in here, but it looks night and day compared to what was there before, right? Honestly, like even in a safe case like this, you could have saved that toilet. It doesn't look terrible. These are things you factor when you're doing, especially if it's a rental. Getting cute with removing walls isn't always the easiest. I will say that. In most townships, they want an engineer's report, which adds to your budget, right? That's something you have to factor. Also adds time. Most engineers aren't going to turn around a report in a day or two. It's going to be a couple of weeks, if not 2-3 weeks. and you don't get your permits to start until you have that. So factor that up front. If you're gonna remove walls or do anything structural, try to get that all out of the way as quickly as possible. The problem is, I'd never recommend commissioning an engineer or an architect before you close. Deals fall apart all the time for the most insane reasons. I mean, I've had people die the day before closing. Like, it's just, anything could happen. And the minute you start spending money, you're losing money until you make it back. If you don't own the house and you're spending money on an engineer, so factor that into your budget, right? If you're borrowing, factor that into the interest you're gonna pay on that loan while you hold it, right? So the cost of removing a wall might not benefit in terms of the return after you factor all the expenses that come along with it and the time. And yes, most houses you see now are white shaker cabinets and quartz countertops and white subway tile. It's because if you go to Floor and Decor, or you can order them on Amazon, the tile, or you go to Home Depot, it's available, one, which, you know, available is huge because it doesn't hold up your profit. And two, it's way cheaper than most because it's in the, it's available, you know, so you will see this stuff quite often. And it's for a reason, right? So again, these are just some examples of things to do. Now, points to consider. We don't have time or desire to go look at every house that we consider, right? And this goes back to like being a first-time investor or a new investor. Pick an area and stick to it, right? If you want to find deals, pick an area. It could be a zip code, it could be a township, and say, hey, I'm going to look for houses in this area. And that's all I'm going to look for, because most areas were built around the same time and most of the houses look the same. And if you know how to evaluate one, you can kind of estimate what all the rest look like. And that makes your time in figuring out if this is a good deal way less, right? So don't cast this wide net of like, I'm going to look here and here and this deal is great and this, no, like hone in and you will find a deal faster, right? I'm not saying it's impossible to do it the other way. I'm just saying this is a quick way to get started, right? Just pick an area. Even if we did, it certainly isn't a good use of your time or your contractor's time to write up a full estimate on a house you may not buy. All right. This is huge because if your contractor has enough time to be with you at every house you go to and write up a bid, I'd be worried about working with that contractor. What else are they doing? They're not doing any jobs, right? So that's not a good contractor, right? So I like it when my contractor's too busy to be with me. It's fine. Sometimes if I'm really unsure, I'll go do videos and I'll ask the questions in the video and I'll send it to him. So I know he's on a job site. I'll say, hey, look at this for me, right? For the business to be efficient, you need a tool to quickly estimate and analyze the potential costs and profits from a deal, speed up the process of making offers. Over the course of several hundred rehabs and consultations, loans, and prospective deals, we've built up a database of costs for typical renovations, right? So historical cost data, along with square footage information from completed deals, allow us to establish average cost per square foot for common renovation tasks and apply averages to prospective deals based on known information. The more you know, the better. Search past listings, aerial views, Google Street Maps, tax search, tax records, contact listing agents and sellers for photos and property information about the property condition. Even without additional information beyond square footage and location, we can find most renovations land within 10K of the average. So with an appropriate contingency or estimates, you come up with good numbers to make offers and get quality leads. There's plenty of technology to make your life easier, right? Before let's pick on Sharon Hill for a second. Sharon Hill, ton of flat roofs because it's row homes, right? If I'm looking at a house with a pitch roof, I can tell you how old the roof is by looking at it. But with a flat roof, you don't know how old it is unless you go up in the rear bedroom and you could see there's a leak on the ceiling, then you know that roof is leaking. But if it's not leaking, you don't know if it's good or bad. And then as is sale, the seller isn't telling you. Well, there's you can go to satellite view and get the most recent satellite view of the roof, and you could see, hey, does this roof look like it's been replaced in the last 5 years? That's a time saver. It's a quick way to figure out if you're gonna have to budget for a roof, and you can do a Google view of the house before you go to it, which I do a ton, just to see like, hey, does it look like a dump? Like, yeah, maybe this was from 5 years ago, but chances are, did it get much better? No, they're selling it as a deal, right? So it probably didn't get a whole lot better, you know? So use technology to cut time, save money, and use like your agent, say, hey, send me the last 3 houses that look like flips in the neighborhood, right? They'll send it to you, they'll send you the pictures. You can show that to your contractor and say, hey, I was at this house, took these videos. What would it cost me to make this house look like this? Give me a ballpark, right? I'm not trying to get a perfect number right now because I need to make an offer very quickly. I'm just trying to get a ballpark so I can put an offer in. And once I know we're really talking and maybe they're going to accept my offer, then maybe I can get my contractor in there. Or maybe they give me a 3-day contingency to have a contractor walk through. Now, if it's on the market with a realtor, that's highly unlikely. They're getting as-is offers. They're not going to give you an inspection contingency because the agent knows what to do. If it's off market and you can convince the seller, different story, right?
You also spend like $60 on the ground. Go out and put a little, the roofs, so it floats in the backyard. You know,
Yeah.
just you sit your car, do it, just release it.
Yeah.
I mess around with it. I don't have that great control, but I'm not just flying around and taking still shots of the pictures and see if there's any potting on the roof and that kind of stuff, and you can go back and say, hey, what's this? Oh, I did that. Well, girl, I want to see what the roof and stuff look like. Tell us. It's just ways to use technology that 10, 15 years ago, you just didn't have, and you're kind of rolling the dice, or you're sending somebody out there 5 a.m. to ladder, something crazy to like get up before, you know, but use technology, you know, that's crazy.
Yeah, there's also, if you're new, you can do a walkthrough inspection with a home inspection company, right? You can have a home inspector, you know, you don't want to pay them for a full report. You're just saying, hey, spend an hour with me and pick this place apart. Because a home inspector is going to tell you the worst of it. Contractors can tell you they can fix everything, right? Because they want the job, right? And they can fix it. It's more about the price. The home inspector can give you, you know, you're taking notes as they're walking through with you. Hey, oh, I see a run that could be knob and tube. Your contractor doesn't tell you until the walls are open, right? Because it's an upsell, right? Now, good contractors won't do that to you, especially in the relationship with you. But most contractors know the word upsell, right? And they know, hey, if they happen to see a frayed wire going up the wall, but they don't mention it, chances are once you're closed and you're already knee deep in it, and they open those walls, they can then sell this to their buddy to come do an electrical job, and they get a cut of that because they're a general contractor. So I'm not saying this is what they're all doing. I'm just saying, look out for yourself. And if a home inspector really is there to look out for you, the contractor's there to tell you everything they can do, right? Yeah, oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, yeah, I have no problem with that. Roofs. Yeah, yeah. If it's done,
Isn't it cheaper? I know mine, I have like a pitch, and it's like a shingle, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's involved.
all right, so assumptions, it should never go without saying, but never buy a property sight unseen or based solely on an estimate. The goal is to prioritize leads and make revocable offers. Again, when you're buying off market, you can add things in like inspection contingencies because the seller doesn't have an agent there to tell them what's in their best interest, right? So they don't know that not getting a deposit and not getting a inspection and having a inspection contingency is not in their best interest, right? So when you're buying off market, you can kind of skirt around a lot of these things. And now when I say sight unseen, the stuff I bought out in Carbon County and Pittsburgh, I don't go see it before I put it under contract. I get an agent to go walk the property for me. they do a video, they send it to me, so I can take a look. Before I even sent them, I ran the numbers to make sure they ballpark work for me, you know, and then I send them the video, and then I make an offer based on what I think is gonna work. After I make the offer, if it's accepted, then I have like, because mine are mostly rentals, I have my property manager and the inspector go at the same time. And that's when I decide, okay, am I really all in here? Usually, if I get to that point, I'm buying the property, just you might have to knock some off after the inspection, but so, and you know, the last three I bought, I haven't gone to. I don't know what I haven't seen the property first, but I know that I've gotten an agent, I've gotten a property manager, I've got an inspector, I had the bank's appraiser go out. You know, that's all those, everyone else has been there. Is there a chance they missed the leaning wall? Yeah, but highly unlikely, right? Especially the inspector. So, you can buy it by not going to the property ever. Just be really cautious and know your steps. Just a couple hints. Again, you can work with what's there, right? You can see the difference in these two rooms with just a little bit of paint. All right, that's a huge difference. We do virtual staging, so you don't have to pay a physical stager to come out and stage your property. It's just, it changes the entire dynamic of that property. I mean, it went from.
With AI.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's great. Mhm.
Even there, open houses for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
$5,000.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
to sell a house.
Yeah.
It's this value proposition for sellers. You want to sell the house, it's empty, you've got to put stuff in it, people can't figure out where the stuff's gonna go, which is pretty stupid, if you all at least understand. The pictures now, turn us fish eye on as a record. So, okay, we can't show you guys to see it, or I've seen it, when something around and see it.
Yep.
So there is a problem with where the United States of places.
Oh yeah, there are a ton of stagers, but for me, I've never staged any of my flips. I've done light staging, you know, like little plans, stuff like that, but I'll do virtual staging. I just don't see, especially in this market, it's gonna sell. It's gonna sell. Like, why are you spending $3 to $5 grand to rent furniture? It's going to sell. You know, you're gonna have multiple offers, unless you're just crazy with the price. But and this market's gonna sell, so I don't see the point of it. Pre-COVID, when houses in Havertown would sit for 3 months, you know, would staging potentially help? Sure, there's benefits to it then, but now, you know, it's not a worthwhile. Now, if you're selling in like 19121 zip code of Philly, right? Like, it's not a super high end selling neighborhood, and you do a really nice flip and you want to do some staging, it might make sense, right? Because your average days on market is 70 there. If you're the staged beautiful house, that might go down to 30, right? So sure, it might make sense. And there's easy ways to do that. Just pull the comps. Look for all the flips that have been staged, see how quickly they sell versus the ones that haven't. This isn't hard research to do. Like, any realtor could do this for you like that. You know, it's easy.
When you say like in comps with like flips, are you saying look at properties that have been sold like a couple of times in the last year or so? Or
Yeah, you should do transactions when you're not. You got somebody got in there, you decide where you're going to split it.
Yeah.
Put it on the market. To,
Yeah.
And that's your 9-month cycle, you can see where they are from Kenzie for, they'll have the old MLS. 4 letters and 3 numbers, combination stuff, and then it'll give you a link that you can put through and see what the pictures were before, and then you can actually see the after pictures. You can also see their prices, you can see if they are flipping it back to the market. You know, again, what the high water kind of price is, and what they low all, what we got, that may not show you the back end price of what they actually paid, but it will show you what that listing has been able to put in the MLS system. But if there's huge agent assists, seller assists, that kind of side, that you want to see, like, we have an opportunity to get real estate agents put money back in deals. We're not high for another 80,000, we pay 3%. And he's my broker, he's gonna get 0.5% or percent on it, but if I, my commission is gonna be 2%.
instead of taking that money as tax relief on, I can leave it on the table and put it towards my down payment for certain things. I can't use it for down payment per se, but I can use it for taxes, fees, everything that goes into closing costs. It's not 5, 10, 20% down. That's the source of the season for your own bank account, if you show that. But when it comes to what you can do with money in and money out, that's where that price point, if you back end looking at it, it doesn't show the whole story, but it gives you a good snapshot of what they bought for before. And then you see after pictures of either what's listed or comps with refer to something that's been sold in the last 90 days, 120 days, that gives you an accurate image where you, where things are selling, where the market is. But you do a little bit of due diligence. And a lot of us will just kind of see like, oh, I remember that house when it was up for sale, or we'll get a listing. I realize, like, you'll just remember the picture or remember the address. And then you'll see that when it hit the market again, 6, 9, 10 months later, you get to see what they did with it. Realize that never got it, it's already turned out, they priced it to a point that it's higher than we're going to pay for it, because now we're at that threshold of, it's not making sidewalks. He's -50, it's like, well, that's not sustainable, to buy something that's gonna be, that doesn't have to invest the money, but it gives you the equity, and then you can refinance. You also have to always have a tenant for your refinancing, because you can take cash out of the property at 75%. What other words to you based on the left side of things. So there's different ways you can use on lending sides to give yourself, especially more families in
And to just help, another tip. Agents have the MLS, there's sites like PropStream that regular consumers can sign up for. They're like a version of the MLS. You do have to pay for it, but it's not like super expensive. It might be like called PropStream, PropStream, PropStream. Yeah, if you have access to the MLS, great, right? And actually, when I got into real estate, it was to be an investor. Like in 2012, when I bought my first house, I'm like, cool, this is fun. Maybe I'll get my real estate license part-time and invest in real estate. And then I realized you need money to invest in real estate, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I started selling real estate on the side and then became a realtor, and that became my full-time thing, and then back into investing. But I think a lot of people start that way. A lot of people on my team, they got their license to be investors, and then they realized, oh crap, I need a ton of money to invest. Let me start selling real estate. So a lot of people I talk to similar, It depends. I had an agent on my team did it in like a month, but he's a mad person, right? I had an agent on my team do it in like a month, but he's a crazy person. Like he was hounding the commission and, but, I think a couple months, 2-3 months, So this is just some examples of some things you can do without spending a ton of money to upgrade the exterior of a property. So let's talk about levels of renovations, right? Again, I have a scope I use for all of my rentals, because most of the rentals I'm buying are in a certain rental class, right? That being, I'm usually buying C to D rental classes. Oh, sure, yeah. And this will all be, I have this recording as well, and it'll be on our YouTube as well. Yeah, but no, feel free. So yeah, like I look for a certain rental class. Now I do have some properties that are in like B neighborhoods, and I buy those mostly because the equity's there and they make sense, but they don't cash flow a whole lot because the taxes are usually too high. So I'm usually looking for properties in C and D class neighborhoods for rentals. If you're looking Delaware County, that's like Darby, what's that? Chester's a little bit lower than that. Chester, and there's sections of Chester. Folsom's actually not, Folsom's like a C, that's higher. Yeah, like like Fallcroft, maybe, yeah, like Fallcroft, Sharon Hill, Darby, even sections of Upper Darby, Chichester, those like towns, that's considered like C, D type rent. Chester could be, an F, like there's a lot of parts of Chester that are tough. And now there's like the outskirts of Chester or near Widener, those rent like crazy. you know, if you get a house in that like little subsection near wider with all the cameras, you know, you're renting for $650, $700 a room to students, but it's only like 2 neighborhoods, right? So, when it comes to rental grade, and I made this mistake early on because I read all the Burr books and I was like, I want these places to be beautiful and amazing and I want them to look the way I want them to look if I live there. And sure, but focus on the important things. Make sure the roof is good, make sure the heater is good, make sure your windows are good, right? Make sure your electric's not shot and your plumbing's good. As long as those things are good and you know you're not gonna have to put a roof on it in the next 3-4 years, you know you're not gonna put a furnace in it in the next 3-4 years, everything else can stay and focus on paint, appliances, low-cost tile, Home Depot fixtures. You don't want to be spending more than $18 per square foot, right? That's, you know, as the stuff I buy, our property managers know we don't want our turnover to be more than 2,000 to 3,000 for turning over the unit, right? And that's in worst case scenario. Usually we want it to be cleaned up and ready to go. If it needs to be painted or I have damaged flooring or maybe there's an appliance, I'm not trying to spend more than 3,000 to turn the unit over. Okay. And that's like a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment.
Sorry.
2,000 to 3,000 to turn the unit over. So a tenant leaves and it's in a rough shape. I'm not trying to spend more than $3,000 to turn it over, right? If it's in okay shape, less, you know, and ideally as little as possible, right? You have to be careful because remember, where you make your money is on the back end when you refinance, right? The money is always in the refinance, right? So, for instance, that house I spoke about in the beginning, the Southwest Philadelphia property, I still have today. And it was one of my smallest deals and it's one of my favorite deals because in 21, I was looking at buying a duplex with my sister under that LLC. And we had just enough in the account to buy it. But like, wait a minute, I have this property that I bought in 2018 that I haven't touched. So I went to the bank and I asked them to appraise it again, appraised for 150. Well, at this point, my mortgage paid down to like 68,000. And it's now worth 150, 75% of that's like 112. So I pay off the first and I take the difference. And that's a cash out refinance. So it's not taxable income because it's a loan against my property. So I was able to buy this duplex with found money, essentially, because I'm not being taxed on it and it's from my property. And I had room, you know, I didn't have to deplete our entire account to do it. So the money is in the refinance. If you could buy a bunch of properties and every 10 years, you pull the money out of them, 5 to 10 years. And that's the game with commercial, like commercial real estate, they're not trying to pay their mortgages off. There's a reason there's a 5-year balloon on most commercial mortgages because they expect those people in 5 years to refi and pull money out, right? It's free money. So, sorry, I was a little off topic, but
How do you think that's changed now that, like, for example, my rental, I was thinking that go to the equity appreciation. So it's at 2.35%.
Yeah.
So.
yeah. So never touch the first. Never touch the first, like ever, right? Like that. And that's another problem with the real estate market. Because so many people, if you owned a house during COVID or you bought a house during COVID, you're paying 2.75, 3%. Why would you ever sell that house?
Right.
It makes 0 sense to sell it. So most of my clients that would be like selling a twin and moving up to a single family, you know, going from 250 to 400. Well, now that's going from 300 to 550, but the payment triples because the interest rate's not 3%, it's 7%. And they're just not doing it. They're actually just keeping the house and staying there, or they're renting it out and buying another house. So that's what's really hurt the regular resale market. But you're talking about just on the residential line. Remember, commercial is always higher. But like, for instance, the 10 unit I had in Potsdam, our first on it was 4.5%. So I'm actually ready to 1031 it pretty soon because I know by 2025, it's going to balloon and I have to refi it. And if I refi it 7%, my profits And I'm just like, I don't want that property anymore. Which is fine. I have plenty of equity. I could do something better with the money, you know?
What is this then? Where he's not paying interest, or sorry, he's not paying tax on the equity that he's built on that property. Basically, just taking all the money you're making and buying another property for that same price. Almost dollar for dollar kind of thing, maybe within what, 5%, something like that. But again, just for show, and I don't want this anymore, but I'm gonna go buy something bigger, better, different than is in the same category. And there's properties that can apply for that same.
So the way the IRS sees it, and we had one of our last ones was on 1031s and it's recorded on the YouTube. I had a 1031 consultant come in because I'm not a tax guy. I know the basic stuff to help me to pay less, but you know, when it comes to like the extreme details. Right. So the IRS wants you to continue moving up, right? It's monopoly. They want you to keep playing monopoly. So if you buy of equal or greater value for investments, they're going to lend you, if you do it the way they want you to do it, which is within 45 days of selling the property, identify the new property, and then within 6 months, close on the new property of equal or greater value. And that could be multiple properties too. So you can combine like 2 properties to equal or greater value. As long as you move up with it in their time frame, they let you roll that money forward. Now, if you don't use all of it, that's fine too. It's called a boot. There's like a portion of it that you don't use, they'll tax you on. But you can't do that with your primary, right? And you can't do it in like kind situations. So if your uncle wants to sell his house to you, they know, and they won't let that happen, right? They won't let him sell an investment property to you of equal or greater value and roll. They're very specific with how you can use the money. In your regular home, so the home you own, as long as you live there for 2 years or 2 of the last 5 years, and the profit you're making as a single person is less than 250,000, or as a couple 500,000, you don't pay capital gains on that. If it's more, you do, which is crap in my opinion, but that's, you know, the IRS word. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to get 500,000, sold for $1 million, for 2, you pay 0.
Because that's the one where
If you sold it for $1.1 million,
Mhm.
then
so
they
you
pay
get
one.
taxed on. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so number 2, simple rehab. Place all fixtures in their existing locations, switch plates, etc. Interior paint, entry grade carpentry or carpet or hardwoods. Entry grade granite in kitchen, $2 per square foot tile in bath. Exclude or include approximate $4 for an extra roof/AC unit. $48 per square foot is what you're looking at in terms of a simple rehab. Right? Again, these numbers are estimates. They are ballparks. Still talk to your contractor, still come up with numbers, but they're good to get started with, right? Now, there's always things that, yes, this is the lipstick. What's behind the wall? All right, well, you're planning on doing all this and, you know, you drill a screw into a wall to put up a piece of drywall or replace a piece of drywall or to take a cap off of an outlet and it's soft, and then you realize there's termite damage behind it. There's things like that can happen. So that's why you want the inspections, right? To see what's actually behind the walls or have a qualified contractor walk with you. But these are, if all else is well, this is what we're doing. Basic remodel. So everything in a simple rehab, plus replace the doors, the windows, the trim. You're adding a level of value by enhancing the existing layout, right? So move/remove 1 to 2 walls, generally in living spaces. So most of the houses in our area were built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, most 40s and 50s. And back then, the heating systems weren't great, right? They just were enough to heat a room, and it was all about efficiency. Now we have central air and central heating. And because of that, you don't need as many walls. So it's trend of open concept came in because you can heat a larger space for much easier, much cheaper, much less. When you're buying these older houses that are fixer uppers, chances are those walls haven't been removed yet because no one's done any work to the property. That's why you're getting a deal. So opening that up could be a huge value add because you're modernizing the home, right? You're taking it from a 50s home and making it a today home, right? And or a home that was built in the last 20 years, right? And that could be a huge value add. So yes, if you're doing a basic remodel, opening a wall is something that's worthwhile. Again, factor in if it's a structural wall, if you're going to need an engineer's report, how much time that's going to cost you on the back end. Those things are things to factor. Another thing that I get quite often from our investors is, hey, this is a 4-bedroom house with a 1 bathroom. Should I make it a 3 and 2 and have a primary suite versus having 4 bedrooms? This is really tough. If it's a rental, you want the 4th bedroom because it rents for more as a 4-bedroom, right? And you're better off just adding a powder room somewhere else in the house. If it's in a heavily residential neighborhood, having a primary suite generally works out better for you, right? Because you're appealing to more buyers. Really have to weigh your target audience, right? If it's a neighborhood that the family size is usually bigger in that neighborhood, you want the 4 bedrooms, right? If it's a typical family size neighborhood, you go with the 3 and 2, right? So it could be good, but generally I always lean on it's better to have more bedrooms. Okay. Unless one's like a closet, they have those like extra rooms that really should just be a bathroom to begin with. Yeah. So removing the walls, opening, combining spaces makes sense. Complete minor plumbing and electrical to expand configuration, kitchens and baths. So minor, you're not replumbing the entire house, right? You're not ripping everything out and replumbing. You're just running new lines for moving the kitchen, moving the bathrooms, adding a half bath, etc. Include an extra 8,000 for extras like roof, HVAC, and driveway. 8K is like roof and another 8K for HVAC, not together, right? So your general flat roof on like a Sharon Hill house is $4,500 now. Used to be $3,000 a few years ago. Your general basic pitched Cape Cod pitched roof is starting at 8K. I mean, I just did a twin on Fairview and it was like 8 for like just a twin, so roofs have gotten a lot more expensive. Factor for that. HVAC, if you don't already have ductwork, it can get very expensive, right? It usually you're not calling Sela or WH or whatever. Like you're not calling those companies to do your HVAC and flip. You're just not. You're looking for a local guy that probably speaks Russian or something, and he can do your HVAC for you, and that's the one you want to do your HVAC system and your flip, right? Because instead of it being $22,000, it's going to be $12,000 for a full new system with ductwork, and yes, is the quality going to be the best quality in the world? No, but it's going to be good enough, So with basic remodels, you're usually factoring about $65 per square foot. Major remodels. So this is everything, right? This is everything, right? So your basic remodels, roof, HVAC, deck, porch, complete major plumbing, electric, all of it, right? Not sure if I said this in the beginning. The price per square foot is not including labor. Okay, that's your contractor has to give you that number, right? So this is your finishes, your materials, your systems. It's not labor, right? So this helps you figure everything else out and then have your GC tell you what they'll charge you for labor.
So maybe $6.55.
Yeah.
The contract is installed, so you're trying to do the labor to install it, so.
Yep. Yeah. And like most contractors in Philly aren't working for less than $150 a square foot. That's, that's the good ones, right? You could find the other guys. All right, so estimating square footage from the MLS. Start with the MLS information from current past listings. use the above grade square footage and total square footage, but never trust these numbers fully. I'm an agent. We put these numbers in. So, you know, a lot of agents don't know what finished livable square footage is. They don't know what above grade versus basement square footage is. They don't know if a house is bigger than it looks. Many times I go into a house and I'm like, oh my God, this house is 400 square feet more than they listed it for. And their agent just doesn't know because they didn't measure the property. And they just thought the public records is what is supposed to be correct, right? No, like your job is to make sure the listing's correct. So these could be benefits to you because then you could buy it for 1,300 square feet and relist it for 1,700 square feet because you have the measurements to prove it, right? But it also hurts you in estimating your renovations because it's a 1,300 square foot house. You're basing your numbers at 1,300 square feet. When you close, oh wait, this is a 1,700 square foot house. These costs are a lot higher than I thought. There's a whole 2 extra rooms I didn't factor for here. All right, and there's a walkout basement that I can add to the square footage, or they were counting the basement and they shouldn't have been because there's no egress. So these are all things to pay attention to make sure you're hitting the right square footage. But usually a good agent can tell you if it's right or wrong. Estimating square footage from the tax records. You can pull the tax records from the MLS listing or perform a tax record search. Again, I don't think you need to go this far. I mean, if you're buying something on the market that, you know, you're either seeing it, you can take a look at the size of the property, see what's in the public records. If you're buying it off the market, I mean, it's generally what's in the public records is correct, but you can do a quick measurement. You don't have to go and back your way into figuring out the square footage based on the tax records. Right, so use the highest number available for the building area description. So total building area is best. Total finished square footage plus any square footage listed in other rooms. Base square footage plus any square footage listed in the basement plus any other rooms. You know, ultimately you're trying to compute the highest logical number of square feet that you intend to touch or renovate. So worst case scenario. All of my numbers are based on worst case scenario, always. What is the worst case scenario here? And that's what my offer is based on. You can try to be optimistic and get burned constantly, you know, because you're underestimating what it's going to cost you. A couple final thoughts. The square foot number in the tax records may not be the most accurate. Actual measurements, however, it is consistent enough to be useful and is the basis for our estimates. Tax records in the MLS come directly from local, county, and jurisdiction tax records and will be more or less accurate and or complete depending on the county. Use the low fly aerial from the MLS, Google, and Street View to confirm the size, additions, conditions. This is really helpful because, again, like in our area and most areas in Pennsylvania, all these houses were built around the same time. So if you're in a neighborhood like Colonial Park in Springfield, they're all 2-story rectangular colonials. But if you look at that neighborhood from an aerial view, you'll see a bunch of them have had bump outs. They've had, you know, like bumps out to the side, bump out to the back, you know, a 2-story addition on the back, a garage added. Over time, people have customized these homes. And some of them might not have pulled permits or, you know, called their tax collector to let them know they want to pay more taxes. So pay attention to those things when you're, you know, if you know all the houses in this neighborhood are 2,000 square feet and you're buying a house and it looks like it's 3,000 square feet, you might want to factor that for the taxes on the property. So when you close, it's not going to be recorded, right? Okay. So there's a lot. I tried to cram the end part in because I normally cut off around 8, but we had a good one today. So kind of open forum, any questions, anything you learned that you'd like to talk about today, thing you'd like to add, any random questions you want to ask that might not have been exactly this topic.
Very yeah, don't you say it. I think I would ask if they've got a title, right?
most of the good wholesalers I work with, when they come to do the deal, they already have, so they have a title company they're partnered with. And they've already pulled title on the property to make sure there's not even, right? And usually the ones that fall apart are the ones that they got a deal, they're excited, and they check and see if they're judgments. So they, you know, the property's about to blow their house. Yeah, it's like half of these wholesale deals. They don't think, oh, why is the seller so excited to get this house offloaded? It's because they just got a foreclosure. And you didn't ask them, so they didn't tell you. You're 2 days before closing and sell a call, it's like, oh, that happened a lot for people. So I would just make sure they've got a title search. Biggest thing, making sure that the price they're asking you is enough. They have like a walk, you know. I've had so many deals with wholesale offering $1,000. They didn't realize all the stuff that, you know, the seller had to pay off to get this house sold. So that's one. Yeah, I don't want to say, you know, like the big wholesalers are going to be more expensive, like say a property. So like New Western or these bigger companies that have these huge staff and overhead, they're trying to make 20, 30 grand on everything on these properties. It's not a whole lot of income for their deals. Whereas you could find a brand new wholesaler that it's really good at finding deals with many people, and they don't have any advertising or overhead. They could be like that price, you know. So I don't think it's really the level of the company, it's more just the person itself. Yeah. And most of them are the local guys have a pretty good social media presence on whatever where you can market the deals. So you know, you can find people. Yeah.
When you, doing the burn method, which level of rehab would you say is usually paired with the burn method? Boundary or is it like?
I right over there. Yeah, I'm looking for it. And I enjoy the burn method because it's really honestly not that difficult to figure out what the value of homes are. Like so the neighborhood's averaging out all the homes are pretty much close. It's in that's it, right? Like it's just like a ballpark telling you, hey, this house should most of the houses on for 86 grand, especially probably 50 and something, you know. And that's the when you're doing a burr, the biggest thing is you're planning on holding this property for at least a few years, if not longer. So spend the money on the roof, spend the money on the furnace, right? Those are the two most expensive things that hit you early on in the burr. You don't want to do it early on because yes, you're putting away 5% for expenses, but that 5% over a year is a whole lot. Over 5 years it is, right? And then your roof goes, okay, the money's in there. So if you know the roof only has a few years left on it, even if it's not leaking, change it up. You don't have to worry, right? If the furnace, yeah, your guy can get it tuned down, get it running, but we're gonna have to be servicing that thing every year, just put a new furnace, right? But the floors, they look like this, awful, you know, like don't go, spending the top amount of money finish, right? That's the important part when it comes to the birds, knowing that you're not going to get hit something huge early on after you that's when it gets big.
Also, too, if you do pay for a furnace or a roof, go with something that if you want to see it, so it's an issue in 3, 5, 10 years. You're gonna come back again. Hopefully, it's no business, I'm going to not going to go back. That's something you can do burn. But if you're putting money into it, I don't want to be like come back and service the roof. If this happens,
And the thing about birds is that it scales like really comfortably. So it starts small, like that's my top advice for any investor. I think it's terrible advice in itself as an agent to tell them how to keep paths. But I just know how starting big goes, and it's usually never good. You have your experience. Start small, get a roll home, get a cheap get bird on a cheap. You know, you're gonna get your take bumps, taking on a deal to get out, right? understand the process, but then. It gets fun, because once you get over 40 units, now you're in the. And you're no longer living in the house, living in the. So I can buy a building, put close to nothing in it, just get more rents, and now it's worth it. Right, so that's why I say I'm not putting more than 2 to 3 grand in these units, turning them over. My focus isn't so much making it looks beautiful as it is taking it from $600, I'm taking 50. Because now monthly my income up, and my payments. And I can go to my bank and say, yeah, I want this at 8 cap, you know, it's like 13 cap, I want to buy at 10. And pull that money. Right, and that money is just the money that goes. Being it, okay, a lot of the time, you know, it's, yeah, pulling tax. We've done a 1031 where I sold like a rural home in Camden, $80,000 profit. 1031 with the apartment building, some other money, and then a year later we took the money out. So it's like legal washing of money. You know, it's crazy. That's what it is. And that's, you can do that, do it over and over. And the good thing about the small ones, when you start with them and you scale up, eventually you're going to go back to the small ones. So I think you want to 31 and making them bigger deals anything. Sure.
For rental properties, does it pay to hire a property?
Depends. I always factor in the beginning, regardless, 10% of the property. Even if I'm happy. Because my goal is to not be mad. Right, so always put that in your, even if we don't buy out good. You might be one of those people that loves managing. That's fine. It's cool. You can do it forever. When you get to a point where you have enough properties, you don't need a headache. You're gonna want to have a property, so we don't factor for that now or for you with that, right? So even if you don't plan on getting a property there, there's still a factor in. Now, everything within like a half hour in the end. Probably not smart, but I mean, I'm a realtor, I'm a team to show the property. It's not that difficult for you or anything like that. I'm attracted to stuff that's important to have, like they send out stuff, from the county. It's just, and I love it. I love that I can't line it like, yeah, you know how hard it's explaining to my wife at 8 PM and I'm going out to see $200 like versus helping her give the kids back. So no, I love that having that arguments, you know. So like that's it's honestly it's like if you have a good property manager, you also need right. Like, your property manager knows the market, understands what you're trying to do, gets it, you it's fun money.
From the perspective of an agent investor, yeah, one of the things that you might see is that, you know, you can get your buyer commission, buyer, stuff like that, but if you're employing someone else that also, you know, we talk about everything, so I don't necessarily have that energy or time to do that. How is that factoring? Do they just become your buyer agent or do you have somebody?
Well, yeah, yes, I hired agency, you're struggling, I have agency agreement, or you do it like this. You say you're laying it yourself, or you're gonna hire one of us to run around for you, and then you find a property that's what it pays, that is, we're not. The other thing that can change too, you can look at the MLS and see what the commission structure is. So whether it's a woman. People, there's people around it. That will now list for the fire agent and say, is it legal? Kind of, you can list whatever you want. We're on this precipice of a judgment in this idea that the buyer agent should get paid by the buyer, not through the profits of the seller of the seller's agent. A workaround that I've come up with recently is, let's say he has an on-market property. I have buyers, when I'm I'm gonna refer my buyers to him, we're gonna renegotiate the deal, he's gonna give me a referral fee for my buyer, but he's taking what's called a dual agency.
And he's gonna work both sides of the deal, and I'm gonna get $1,000 for giving him my, but. I don't get paid the works. And I'm doing the due diligence of helping my clients out by making sure their fiduciary responsibility is met, and originating the document for the sales contract. But, I mean, I know that once you get through the sales contract section, there's negotiations that have to happen. And that's when the seller agent is most important, because he has to keep both people at the table. And it's kind of easier to do that once you're just one entity, where he has to wait for me to talk to my buyer, then go back to him. If you both sides of the deal, you already know your sellers need to keep it. Now you're just trying to leave the real seller, and tell them why it's also a new deal, because this is what the sales contract said, sure, we found a leak in the roof, we're gonna give you a credit. Fix the roof, they want to spend 20 grand, or 10,000. Now, go ahead and hire your own roof over once you go to the property, the best inspection, but you know that's a material defect that could buy you gas, and now it's like buying a used car that has one tire that's you're a law, right, and full tire, so you might just buy a house, sit on the 10 grand, or leave the 10 grand as sits, so you get less money coming out of your pocket, you gotta hold that 10 grand for when the roof does. You need to know.
I think like not the mindset. You are, you don't have, so like you see, even sort of new deals, I think the agents here too. Okay, typically you like, you find me a deal, like you keep going with it, I say the agent closing period, like, yeah, so I find me a deal, you can reference on this transaction. Because you're helping me make money, so happy you're making money. There are ways like you can negotiate, hey, you're gonna let me use my buyer, just so I'm the best rate, follow that. Towards you can like work out a referral on every deal, right? So you can say, hey, I'm gonna be working with you as well, and you need to pay deals, refer to 25. And if the agent's smart and it's good for them, they're gonna do it. Now, they realize that it's about that lesser sauce, and at least in their time, doesn't make sense, but that's a business, right? But yeah, you can work out. It makes sense. But if they're, up till recently, I got my own lawn, and I was spending my only day off, I don't know, and I was paying. Really got too expensive, but until it's worth it to you, it makes a lot. What's up, okay? Anything else? Good, thank you all for coming. This is just one topic, I try to think about, it's about 10 topics a year, focus on for all the times. When we do 1031 exchange, there's a tax. Yeah, and that one, I'm recording up on our YouTube, check that out. And tax 31, 1031 exchange specialist that go what's that one with me.
Okay.
What's that? When you search on YouTube, you look up Great DELCO, and or William Holder, one of the looking to see all. Was that take time every month? Yeah, we try to be the third Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock. Every now and then, we have a conflict or whatever to other, for the most part.
And so we see.
Yeah.
Okay.
We usually have a little.
Okay.
Alright, sorry.
That's what, no, yes.
It's like
Yeah.
all the smaller.
Thank you.
What's that? Be very, very careful. Make sure you know who your partner is.
And that's where what happened is, so I was going to be, I had someone in.
Yeah.
Renovate my bedroom.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, I was interested in flipping houses because I had the money to do it. So I was gonna be like decided first.
Sure.
I'm not gonna kill do the works of the house.
Yeah.
So then it was like more intriguing to them. And I was like, So at the very next minute, then I saw the work again, going on, at my fix, and I'm like, oh, I would never have to,
Yeah,
like, flip anything.
yeah.
So then they got really mad. Really mad, like, yeah,
Your contractor's any good at having. So
yeah.
that's the reality. So when you're doing partnerships, and I have plenty of partnerships at everything, one else, four guys on the two, on the like. They're my friends, so that makes me, yeah, no,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's not always the best, right? Like, you don't always do business with friends.
Yeah.
I don't have really good friends, I won't do this, it has to be the right person,
Yeah.
right personality, everything is in the right. We
Absolutely.
are very specific, our operating agreement says, right, it is like, there's not gonna be any, go back to each other, it's in the agreement, you break the agreement, it's, it's not.
Yeah.
You gotta have all, everyone has to have a stability, figure that all out before you. You can't come to terms on just that,
Exactly.
so,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's. Get it
And
done.
it happened, it did happen.
Yeah, and
It's a good night, and I realized the money.
Yeah.
And then they got mad, and I went.
I have a
You
ton
know,
of tips.
somebody telling me I will be the final supplies.
Yeah,
Like, we need your money for the supplies, and I'm thinking, well, okay, they're doing it, and then it became a problem at my hands. Because they wanted me to buy everything off the line, but they gave me an estimate.
Yep.
Oh, well, you need to go buy the.
Yep. Yeah, if they can't run, like if they can't run a simple bathroom remodel, how are you gonna